Episode 17 of Glass of Joe. I'm PJ Glasser alongside Joe Malfa. Hope everybody's having a good week. Joe, little bit different episode this week. We do not have a guest, but we sure have a whole lot to talk about. U.S. Open and golf's going on, NBA playoffs, NHL playoffs, heating up. We had week 1 of the NFL season, college football week 3 starting, SEC starting next week. Big Ten has said they're going to return. Pac-12 might be returning. So we got a whole lot to talk about. But we got to start with the United States Open Championship. We're recording this on Thursday morning, so it's going on right now.
I've got it on up on the TV in the corner, and I know you've got it like taped and paused in the background because you don't want to miss a single shot. So I won't tell you anything that happens.
I appreciate that. I'd be too distracted. You'd be in a conversation, might ask me a question, and I'd be too glued into the TV and wouldn't know what you're talking about.
That's a fair point.
But
this course is ridiculous as I'm watching it. I mean, I know all week the talk was about how this was going to be. The winner will be lucky to be near par. And I see why now. The 12th is 643 yards.
That's all.
I mean, that's a 6-iron and a pitching wedge for Bryson DeChambeau. But like for the rest of the field, that's a challenge. And it's a beautiful course. I have no idea how this is going to go. We'll get to our picks like we always do. I don't know how to pick this thing. This course is a monster. I heard
and the conditions
Tom Rinaldi,
perfect. Right
they are
now.
Perfect at least.
They're
but
perfect.
I heard the stat from Tom Rinaldi in the tournaments that have been held here. Only two winners have ever finished below par, ever at Wayne Foot. So don't expect any good numbers this week.
No.
The winner, I mean, it's going to depend on the conditions, but the winner is almost certainly going to be above par. On the note of no guests, just for our listeners. Apologies for the 16-week streak ending, but our guest this week was related to Big Ten football. And with the news yesterday, I guess, I'm losing track of the days, of them coming back, it was a whole whirlwind for him. And we will pull him back in at the beginning of October instead. So look out for that. But like you said, it's a loaded week, so it's not a bad week to go ahead and have just us because there's so much to cover. And now, with the U.S. Open, PJ, who do you like? I teased that we would get to our picks. I don't know. I really – there's just such a challenge at this course.
Right.
We've got our boy Sanzi from a couple weeks ago on NBC and the Golf Channel calling it. Yeah. He gave us his pick back then, but I don't know. I really don't know.
Well, I told you I liked Morikawa for the PGA, and I felt good about that one. I don't have a pick that I like as much as him going into the U.S. Open. The 3 guys I did bet to win that I like this week the best are Rory, Adam Scott, and Patrick Cantlay. Those were the 3 I bet. The top 3 of DJ, Rahm, Justin Thomas, at a course like this, you would think the best players in the world are going to be towards the top of the leaderboard. The way DJ's playing right now, and the way Rahm is playing right now, the way Thomas is playing, how far they can hit it, how good their short games are. I mean, they're complete players. They're going to be tough to beat. I like Rory, though, this week. I just think he's due. Adam Scott, he's so steady. He's not a guy that'll go out and shoot 8 under, 9 under par on really any course.
Nobody's shooting 8 under, 9 under on this course anyway. So.
Exactly. But he's steady, which is what you need. He'll shoot 1 over, even, 2 over every day. He'll be right in the thick of it. And Cantlay's the same kind of way. There's no flashy part of his game. He's steady. Steady is the key word in the U.S. Open because guys know they're going to make bogeys. It's the dudes who can avoid the big numbers that are going to win this week. So those would be my 3. As you know, I really hate picking chalk. I assume you're eating Dustin Johnson, which is a cool pick. But really?
I'm not. I'm for this week, I definitely didn't want to go chalk because of just how crazy the course is. But before I get to my pick, are you surprised? And the benefit of recording this on Thursday morning instead of our usual Wednesday afternoon is we've seen how the course has played out a little bit. And I'm not going to – my pick from who before the day was it's going to stay. I'm not changing because of how I've seen the early scores.
Right.
But are you surprised to see so many low numbers already? I mean, almost through 18 and the leaderboard's -3, -4. That's not at all what anybody expected.
No. And again, as I mentioned a couple minutes ago, the conditions are the key right now because there's really not much wind. Joe, once that wind starts picking up and these holes play even longer than what they're playing at face value right now, I mean, it's going to be impossible. So the best players know, all the players know, they have to get after it today. You have to put yourself in a good spot because you got to figure that this might be the only day that you're shooting under par, and you won't shoot 3 or 4 under 2 days in a row. So they're getting after it. I am surprised that the scores are this good, and I do not expect that to continue.
Yeah, there's no shot this continues the whole weekend. Tiger was one of the most popular bets I saw this week. At 45-1, he ended up. Now, that is just one of those where in this week, that's just a sprinkle if you want to have some fun. But there's honestly no way of knowing. My pick coming into the week was Jon Rahm, so not quite the chalk of DJ that you mentioned, but kind of in that next cut of chalk where Rahm has been right up there with DJ, playing great golf. You talk about guys being steady, and that's really what Rahm has been and is, where he's just consistent, almost to a fault where it's prevented him at certain big tournaments from making that final push and shooting that extra low number when he needed it, to the point that at this course, though, that steadiness will help him. And I feel like he's due. I mean, the other guy who I looked at and saw he's been steady and maybe his due is Jason Day, but I don't have as much confidence in his game as Jon Rahm's game, especially the form they're in right now. JT, Rory, they started off well. I'm not letting that influence my pick, but I like Rahm. He's yet to tee off today. I think, again, like you said, like everybody has harped on, it just comes down to steadiness on a course like this. It's going to come down to luck as well. The conditions are supposed to be good all day, but, the forecast for the weekend, as you get into it, it's going to depend on whether you're teeing off at 9 a.m. or 12:47 p.m. That might be the difference between shooting 3 under and shooting 3 over, depending on how the conditions play out. So many variables, so many unknowns. I'll go with Rahm. I have absolutely zero confidence in any pick this week. I'm just going to sit back and enjoy it. Who am I personally rooting for? You'd always love to see Phil get a win at the U.S. Open, and it'd be quite the story, especially at Winged Foot. Tiger getting a win, obviously. He is the needle, as we always talk about. So that would be a fun story. But it's really, really anybody's tournament, and I have absolutely no clue. I'll say Jon Rahm. I'm not going to win that. And that's pretty much about it. All you could really say about a U.S. Open at Winged Foot.
Joe, I had the best time this week. So Capital One Arena, where the Wizards and the Caps and the Mystics play, they opened a sports book. They put kiosks in there. So I've been heading down there to play some bets. And I went yesterday on Wednesday just hoping to pick the winners of the tournament, maybe a couple golf matchups. And they had all these props like, will this guy make or miss the cut? Will this guy finish in the top 10 or 20? I was in heaven. I'm like, I didn't think I'd spend this much money, but here we are. So that was a lot of fun. But that's when I'm betting more so this week because, like you, I bet those 3 guys that I said, Cantley, Scott, and Rory, but just not a great feel on them. So I really lean towards the top 20s, the top 10s. Will guys miss or make a cut? Head-to-head golf matchups. Will this guy win over this guy? So I just think it's that kind of week. But I can't wait. It's a little tough that the U.S. Open is during football. Obviously, they had to push it back. I got Ravens-Texans at 4:25 on Sunday.
Hey, if you think this is tough, just wait until Masters weekend.
At least Bama LSU won't interfere with that. That's the nice thing. Ravens-Texans is going to be dap smack in the middle of when they come on Sunday when the leaders are turning on the back nine. So I'll have to get some picture-in-picture working on the old direct that going. But it should be a great week. Obviously, woke up at 8 this morning, started watching, and it's been a lot of fun. Joe, so the U.S. Open is the big story going on, but might not be bigger than the Big 12 coming back to play college football.
Big 10. Big 12's back.
That's what I meant, Big 10. I was thinking Pac-12 and then Big 10, so I said Big 12.
Close enough.
Big 10.
It's the word big and a number that doesn't even anymore match the amount of teams who are actually in the conference. So it doesn't really matter.
So the Big Ten's back. You're a Big Ten guy, being that you're a graduate of Maryland. Are you surprised that they are back and they are playing?
Yes. I mean, it doesn't really make any sense to me. I mean, it does, but it also doesn't. I know why it was done. It was obviously done 100% for money and and seeing how the Big 12 and ACC and SEC are going, the Big 10 didn't want to be left out and be looked at as, oh, why'd you guys jump the gun on this decision so early and now it cost you a season? But on the other side of that, they made what was probably the right choice at the beginning. Then they saw how the first couple of weeks played out. And while a lot of places went off without a hitch, UVA, Virginia Tech, that was supposed to be game day this week, got pushed back. LSU announced that more than half their team caught it. Oklahoma State had a lot. Oklahoma had a lot. Texas Tech had a full outbreak.
BYU,
Memphis had a full outbreak.
Yeah.
BYU had a full outbreak. All these places have had full outbreaks. And the Big Ten decided to vote in favor of coming back after seeing that. I mean, if anything, after this past week, again, while some of the bigger games have gone on, with all these teams that have had issues, I think people were starting to say, you know what? They sacrificed the season for it, but the Big Ten made the right choice. And then they decided to come back. It made no sense timing-wise. I hope they pull it off. I read through their protocols that were made public, and they seem to be just about airtight. I really like the addition of having the cardiac screening, because that has been a big fear of a lot of these teams, with players having any heart issues as a result of COVID. So that's something that hasn't been something I've noticed in any other protocols that I noticed in this one. But we will get back to that in a second, because PJ, I got a surprise for you. I see somebody has entered into our waiting room here in Zoom. He's been waiting a couple of weeks to get after us for something that happened a few weeks ago when we were talking about our top Pixar movies. Would our surprise Zoom bombing guest like to introduce himself? I'm not seeing a picture. I'm just seeing the word worm.
I'd just like to keep it this way, personally. I don't need to see the face or hear anything.
Don't need to see the face or hear him. He's there somewhere. Let's see if he can get his technical difficulties under wraps. He's coming in from the beach. I wonder if he had a few brews on the beach and it's impairing his technical abilities here.
Oh.
There he is. Oh, my goodness. It's going well.
I've been having a lot of Mai Tais, not brewskis. All right, get it right.
Okay. Well, our dear friend Ryan Wormley from NBC Sports Washington had a bone to pick with us after our Pixar top fives in the Mike Greenberg episode. So just to remind you of our top fives, PJ's from 5 down to 1 went Onward, Toy Story, Coco, Up, Toy Story 3. I went Onward, Ratatouille, Up, Inside Out, and the cop-out of having the Toy Story franchise as my number 1. So the floor is yours. We've got 10 minutes budgeted out for this. Go ahead and tear us to shreds, apparently.
Okay, well, first of all, when you say I have a bone to pick, that's wrong. I have several bones to pick.
I'm out.
The second in that original episode that Joe said, I have kind of a cheat at number 1, you'll see what it is, I knew exactly what he was doing, that he was going to throw in the entire Toy Story franchise in there, which is, first of all, garbage. You can't do that. That's like a fifth of all Pixar movies. You can't put that at number 1, so I take real issue with that. Second of all, and this is perhaps the biggest bone I have to pick, you described so many movies during your ranking as incredible, but you didn't mention The Incredibles, which is easily the number 1 Pixar movie. It is arguably the best superhero movie ever made. It is definitively the best Fantastic Four movie ever made. It is pure, unadulterated joy. When Dash runs on the water for the first time and looks down and realizes he's fast enough he can run on water, and he does that little laugh, that is cinematic perfection. It is gold. It is the best best moment in any Pixar movie ever. It's incredible. Again, you kept using that word to describe other movies, and you forgot the movie that was literally named for how incredible it was. I was really worried when I was listening to your list the first time, and I didn't hear this movie for a while, but you did eventually get to it in its proper place, at least one of you did, and that's Inside Out, which I think is one of not only the best Pixar movies, it's just a good time, it's a lot of fun, it's very funny like all Pixar movies are, but I think it's a really important Pixar movie. Outside of maybe Coco and a couple others here or there, I think it might be the most important Pixar movie because it teaches kids that it's okay to be sad and to feel all of your emotions. And, when you lose your imaginary friend, that is really sad, and you can move forward from that. And there's all these core memories. It's a really important story about the way the human brain works and how you process things through emotion and how okay it is to not always be okay when you're a kid. And that is a message that very rarely do you see any kids animated movies give you. And I was really blown away by that. So I can get to my other three here once you guys react to that. But to me, there's a tier 1 of Pixar movies, and it's Incredibles 1 and Inside Out, and then you're looking at the rest of your list.
So maybe my issue with The Incredibles, and we talked about this after the list, I said I'll go back and watch them and see if I need to reassess. They're great movies. Let's remember that we're grading on a curve here when it comes to Pixar movies, that outside of Brave, and some people will say The Good Dinosaur, even though I personally really enjoy The Good Dinosaur, that everything else, it's really splitting hairs. And it really is splitting hairs. Oh, Cars 3. Cars 2 and 3. I forgot, yeah. I knew I was forgetting something. Cars 2 and Cars 3 were also flaming garbage. Cars 2 a lot worse than Cars 3. A little bit of redemption with Cars 3. But they're all great. Let's remember that they're all great. For me with The Incredibles, I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was missing some of the heartwarming that you see in some other Pixar movies. I don't know if it was missing kind of the general themes of Pixar movies, where just about across the board, Pixar movies are taking some sort of inanimate object or unique object and giving them life, like Toy Story, like Ratatouille, where it was just kind of like a human movie. Granted, it was about superheroes, but in a time where, maybe at the beginning when it first came out, it was better, but ever since then, when Marvel has had its boom and all these tremendous superhero movies have come out, where I kind of felt looking back, The Incredibles got left in the dust. So I don't know. Just for me, it's in that next cut after the top 5 that I gave, but it's still a great movie. I just don't see it at number 1.
Well, let me just say, because you mentioned the Marvel movies, I think obviously the original X-Men movies and the original Spider-Man movies in the early 2000s get a ton of credit for sort of setting the standard for superhero movies going forward and showing that comic book movies can be successful. The Incredibles is not based on any existing comic book, but I think it really did help set the template. It showed the fun you can have with the superhero movie, and I think that the Marvel movies owe a lot to that movie. I mean, Incredibles came out in 2004. Iron Man is 2008. Like, I think that there's definitely a lot of overlap there.
It definitely is.
Incredibles is good, okay, but it doesn't do it for me.
I'd probably have it at 7 personally. If we wanted to go beyond our top 5, I have Coco right on the edge at 6. And if you remember in that episode, that's the one that I said after a few more watches will probably get into the top 5, supplanting either Onward or Ratatouille. But Incredibles is a solid 7th for me. It's
I think, too, when you're grading Pixar, you have to look at the creativity of the movies, okay?
Yes,
and
that's a big thing for me with Incredibles, exactly.
And Incredibles, it's a nice story, but again, there's been facets of it that have been done. So when I look at movies like Inside Out or Up or Onward or Toy Story, they're so brilliant and inventive. And when you think of Pixar, you think of movies like that. And that's why those were over that for me.
I will admit, I know Onward is number 5 on both of your lists. I have not seen Onward. It's one of the newer releases. I just haven't gotten around to it.
Some friend you are. I said that I would watch The Incredibles back if you watched Onward, and I held up my end of the bar.
Watch Onward.
I haven't watched Onward.
I will still watch it. I just didn't know that I was going to be crashing your Zoom today. I wasn't prepared, obviously. You mentioned Coco. That is one I will admit it's not on my top 5, but it is right there in the honorable mentions, and I've only seen it once. If I see it more, I could see myself moving that in eventually. It's obviously a brilliant movie. I'll run through the other 3 of my top 5 here. Toy Story 3, which I think is the best Toy Story. I am a little biased because I graduated high school in 2010. Toy Story 3 came out in 2010, so I was just hit in the exact right moment of this is my life that I'm experiencing going off to college. I really was one of those kids of the generation that grew up with Toy Story. So obviously brilliant movies, brilliantly creative movies, and really poignant as well. And then I have at number 4, WALL-E, which I think is severely underrated amongst Pixar movies. I know some people think that it's kind of boring. I think PJ might have said that.
That's Nick. It doesn't do it for me.
It is a masterclass in visual storytelling, in show, don't tell. And it also has a pretty poignant message about, the fate of the human race and relying too much on robots and all that stuff. But you don't even need to get into that to appreciate it's a romantic story with WALL-E and Eva. And it's just it's brilliantly animated like all Pixar movies are. And I was really impressed. And then number 5, you guys are really going to hate me for this one. Incredibles 2.
Oh, God.
And here's my take on Incredibles 2. And I had this exact same take about Indiana Jones 3 and Horrible Bosses 2. How are those movies all related, you ask? Because they are sequels that people don't like as much as the original. But I maintain if they had come out in reverse order, and obviously you get into little like origin story stuff here, but if the second stories had come out first, I think people would like it better. Sequels are by nature not as original as the original movies that come out, but I think that the storyline of Incredibles 2 is just as good. I think the action is just as good. The animation, the family dynamics, I think it's all brilliant. And I really want to own in on that action aspect because I think people look at animated movies that have action involved and think, well, you don't need to rely on stuntmen. You can just draw whatever you want to happen. It's way easier to do action. I actually disagree wholeheartedly. I think it's a lot harder to do action and to really choreograph an interesting, creative, realistic fight scene. When you have the ability to do, animated, you can have people do whatever they want. But when you constrict yourself to the rules of the universe and still come up with really engaging fight scenes that show characters with different superpowers using their superpowers the way they normally would. You see all these Marvel movies, it usually just comes down to a bunch of people throwing punches at each other. And I'm like, you have all these different superpowers. Why are you just throwing punches? Incredibles doesn't do that. 1 or 2, they show, Violet using the shield and the weird, creative times, and Dash using his speed in the right ways. And they introduce all the new superheroes in Incredibles too. So I think they did a really good job with that. And I think it's a travesty that more people don't give it credit just because it's a sequel. I know we don't have a lot of time, so I'll just run through my honorable mentions real quick. Coco, like I said, could easily get there one day. Toy Story 1 obviously set the template for everything to come. Monsters, Inc., just a really fun movie. I just enjoy watching whenever it's on. Finding Nemo, I never loved as much as everybody else, but still obviously a really good movie. Ratatouille, a ton of fun. It's just Ratatouille is one that would be a top 5 if Pixar wasn't the elite of the elite movie studios. Yes. It's a totally top 5 worthy. There's just too many great ones there. And then Up, which I think it has become, people like to talk about Up like, oh, it's a really great first 10 minutes and then the rest of the movie is just fine. I don't think that's true. I think it's a really good movie that is bolstered by an emotional, really strong first 10 minutes. But I think because that has been the conversation about Up, it's almost become so overrated that it's underrated. It didn't make my top 5, but it's right there on the edge like those other ones where I just mentioned.
Yeah, Monsters, Inc. is right there for me. I think that I gave you my 6, 7. Monsters, Inc. is 8. I did the whole top 10 that day with PJ. We only released our top 5. But it's just a testament to the greatness of the studio. And like I said, Coco probably jumps up once I watch it a few more times past Ratatouille and onward. Luca is on the horizon, and it's about a young Italian boy. And I mean, that is just right up my alley. So when that one comes out in 2021, I'm coming into that one with very high hopes. And then Soul comes out in November.
A 20-year-old basketball player.
Was it?
I thought Luca was about a 20-year-old basketball player.
No, that's that's a different thing that happened in Orlando near the Disney Studios that took the world by storm very recently. But I did say to my girlfriend that down the road, if Luka Doncic really becomes that guy and Luca the Pixar movie becomes that movie and gets into that upper tier, that Luca might have to be in the back of the mind as a baby name. So.
I'm sure she appreciated that.
She did.
Plus, you can do a Space Jam kind of thing. You converse Luca with Luca, the basketball player.
If you really want to get into some hot movie takes, I think Space Jam is a terrible movie. It is unwatchable if you're over the age of 10. It does not hold up in the slightest. The best part about Space Jam is the fact that they haven't changed the website since 1996. That's the only good part of the movie.
That is one of those movies where if you grew up on it, you love it. If you didn't, you hate it. The Goonies is another one of those. I grew up on it. I love it. I tried showing it to my girlfriend 2 years ago at the age of 20. She hated it. So you either grow up with it or you don't.
Those are the movies. It doesn't matter what anybody else says. They're just personal to you.
Exactly.
It's nostalgic. You grew up with it. You're not going to hear any argument against it.
You see the trend going around Twitter now. It's 4 movies that you like more than anybody you know. I'm going to hop on that train later today, and The Goonies is going to be one of my 4 for that. But Worm, this was a pleasure. We said it last week when we had Pete Haley on. It's always a pleasure seeing anybody we saw in the hallways all the time at NBC Sports Washington. I know you've turned me on to some movie YouTubes that I've been going through and enjoying.
Enjoy those rabbit holes.
Yeah, you sent me down a few rabbit holes, and as we get through more episodes and we probably have some more movie top 5s to throw in with our sports talk, we'll be sure to have you back.
Cannot wait. I love the idea of being the movie correspondent here. And I always appreciate the warm welcome.
There you go.
On that
All
note, I'm kicking you from the Zoom. I'm not even giving you a
Don't
chance
tweet
to leave
during
on your,
Raven games, okay?
not even giving you a chance to leave on your own terms.
See you guys.
See you.
I didn't even give him a chance to leave on his own terms.
Oh,
That was it. Just for
man.
that pun. Oh my
Joe,
goodness.
I always joke with Worm. So I gave him so much crap for last year in the playoffs when the Ravens were either going to get the Bills, the Texans, or the Titans. And he tweets out, he's like, I can't imagine a more more less respected group of three teams than those three, or something like that. And I'm just like, Worm, are you serious right now?
Oh my God.
And then on New Year's Eve, he tweets out something like, "Wow, 2020, the year the Ravens are going to win the Super Bowl." And I'm like, it's stuff like that. And
hey, maybe he meant the 2020 season, which is now, for the 2021 Super Bowl.
I don't know.
Question
But
mark?
he just with the Browns, they get off to an unbelievable start. They fake that punt. He tweets out, "Oh, the Browns look scared. The Ravens get held to a field goal. The Browns come down, score a touchdown." I'm like, Worm, you need to stop. The Ravens go on, they score 26 unanswered points, win by 30.
It was all right in the end.
There we
All right.
go.
Let's
So,
get this back on the
yes,
rails. Where
let's
were
get
we
it back on the
before
rails.
Worm crashed for some movies? We were on the Big Ten coming back, and I was saying that I thought it was surprising in light of all the schools that have had outbreaks. But it's what they're doing. That's exactly where I was as far as the protocols. The protocols are there. Michigan's president is an epidemiologist, and he was one of the first to be outright against playing. My only hope is that with Michigan leading the way, and a lot of credit was given to the Ohio State doctors for being a really good staff as well, I really, really hope this was a medical decision from an epidemiologist, from some great doctor staffs in the Big Ten, and not a John Harbaugh, Ryan Day, athletic directors really panning down the door because they want football. Because more so than the other conferences who announced they were playing from the start, the Big Ten is in a horrible position right now because if games get canceled, if there are outbreaks, God forbid if a player has complications or passes away, they will struggle to survive as a conference. I really think that. I mean, the negative PR and the heads that will roll for reversing the decision that was voted upon to not play, that there is a firestorm that will come after that. So they have to be damn certain that it's going to work out.
Is they're taking bigger risks by saying that they weren't going to have one, and then now they're saying they're going to have one. If you would have had the season and then you would have shut it down, that's one thing. But once you say you're shutting it down, and remember, when they shut it down, they posted the Big Ten schedule like 4 days before, and everybody's like, oh, they're going to play. And then there was enough evidence that they thought to not have the season.
And it's not like anything has changed.
Not much.
Nothing has changed.
So they're really taking a risk.
And while not to get into the, away from the sports aspect of it and into the real life aspect of it, but the case numbers have come down. The positivity rates have come down overall as a country. But I was reading a New York Times piece yesterday, or Washington Post. I hope I credit the right one. It was one of the two. I'll give credit to both. Don't come after me. I'm sorry. But the numbers were shown that while the trend over the course of the country has come down, the trends have spiked again in the Midwest. And aside from Maryland and Rutgers, all of the Big Ten is in the Midwest. So while it's coming down as a nation, it's spiking in those states. So the info, if anything, paints a more negative picture for the Big Ten, where they would have been justified in saying they're playing from the start and are less justified in saying it now. So it's a mess that I hope we don't have to get into. I hope it goes off without a hitch. And again, it's that weird position for us where, yes, we're happy to see it, but we could also acknowledge that it's maybe not the right decision. And only time will tell.
And now, you see reports that the Pac-12 are like, hey, don't forget about us. Maybe
everybody did forget about them.
And now they want a piece of the pie too. So it's a real interesting situation to monitor with the Big Ten. We'll see what happens. NBA, Joe, and maybe the biggest stunner definitely of the NBA playoffs.
It was the New York Times. Sorry, let me get that right. It was the New York Times. I looked it up. Okay.
The Denver Nuggets, though, to come back from 3-1 twice, but to do it against the Clippers, that game 7, and I was talking to people about this, the most amazing thing about that fourth quarter, Joe, it was amazing that the Clippers, it took them 7 minutes to make a field goal. It was incredible how just tireless and gutless they looked when they knew that they were going to lose. But the most amazing thing is whenever you have an underdog in basketball playing a favorite, whether it's the NBA, whether it's March Madness, whatever it is, the favorite always makes that run when they're losing. They always
Exactly.
There's a little sprint, whether it's an 8-2 run, a 10-2 run, a 6-up. There's something that you're like, oh, is this the moment where there was none of that? Not once. At any point in that fourth quarter did the Clippers even threaten the Nuggets. And to me, that was the most amazing part, is you have this team with Kawhi and Paul George and Lou Williams and Montrezl Harrell, and they didn't even give the Nuggets a scare. Jokic and Murray are the real deal. Mike Malone's a good coach. Man, to win 2 series being down 3-1.
First team ever to do it twice in the same postseason.
Man, and again, this is what's so great about the bubble, because if this was the regular playoffs and they had to win 2 games in the Staples Center, I don't know if that happens. If they had to win 2 games in Utah, I don't know. Well, they were the favorites, so if they won 1 game in Utah, I don't know if they would have done it. But that's the beauty of the bubble, is these games are neutral site. If you don't bring it every game, you could lose 3 in a row.
This is why, for all the people who have said, we put an asterisk next to this title or to the Stanley Cup. Now, baseball you can, and it's something that we'll talk about as we do our playoff preview and talk about MLB in a moment. Or sorry, not the playoff preview. We're not there yet. The playoff race preview. Baseball's different. Baseball went gimmicky. They went with best of 3 series, picking your opponents. So there's certainly going to be an asterisk next to any World Series, so they could join the Astros with an asterisk next to their title. The NBA and the NHL absolutely should not have one, because this title, in many aspects, is much harder to win than a normal one, because you don't have any of the variables that could go in the favor of one team or the other, where you've got your home crowd, you're making the other team travel to you, things like that. Those things are gone. It's just our skill level against your skill level, neutral site, no fans, who's the better team, period. And like you mentioned, if they were going to have to win 2 games at the Staples Center, perhaps the Nuggets are the better team than the Clippers, but we might have never found out, because with the travel, with going into that hostile environment, it would have affected them. But being that it was neutral site and no fans and just best on best, the Nuggets were able to show that they were the deeper team in the end and the better team in the end, and they executed better. And in those aspects, like you said, you can't have a night off. You can see teams come back more. That's the beauty of the bubble, and it's why, at the end of the day, this is going to be looked at as one of the hardest titles to win, like Giannis was saying before the playoff even started, and people were like, what are you talking about? And then they were like, a day later, they were like, you know what, maybe he has a point, as you started to think about it more. This is the hardest title probably to win, because it is simply our best, your best, who's better. And that's it. There's no variables.
Right. And I think a lot of people think that the Lakers are going to beat the Nuggets in 4 or 5 games. And my rebuttal to that would be, didn't most people think the Clippers were better than the Lakers?
Did.
Right.
Go back to our episode previewing the conference semis. We both said Clippers in 5. I said that most of the Clippers wins are going to probably be between 20 and 25 points. After game 1, they won by 23. I was like, that split the difference between what I said. I was like, I'm looking great right now. They won the first game by just about the exact point total I said they would win it by. They go up 3-1, 1 game away from that, gentleman's sweep that we talked about, and then they blow it. It's
right. And look, and basketball is all about matchups. And obviously the Clippers don't have anybody like Anthony Davis. But, Jokic matches up with them well, because they're 2 bigs that can spread out the floor. They can handle it. They can shoot. So it's a good matchup. And obviously you can't cover LeBron. You can hope to contain him. But did they not contain Kawhi and Paul George? So
look, I'll say Lakers in 6, just to show the Nuggets a little bit more respect than saying their opponent in 5, like I said for the last series. I'll give them 6 just to show that respect. But I really don't think they have much of a chance, honestly. And I hate to keep
I know.
doubting them,
Look,
but
I'm
it's
with
just,
you, but
it's
yeah,
everything is aligning for the Lakers right now. We've talked about this for a while.
Yeah.
The stars have aligned with everything with Kobe. So they highlighted that the last time Kobe won a ring in 09. No, I'm sorry, not the last time he won. When he got his 4th ring in 09, they beat the Nuggets in the Western Conference Finals. They beat Orlando in Orlando for the clincher to get his 4th ring. Nuggets in Orlando, 4th ring. LeBron has to go through the Nuggets in the Western Conference Finals, and to get his 4th ring, it's going to happen in Orlando. So there's so many things where the stars are aligning, and I'm not picking against the Lakers. I go with the Lakers in 6, but
the other series, Miami Boston, 6 or 7 coin flip. I really
7.
do not know who's
I'd say
going to win
7.
that series.
I say 7. I go with the Celtics, like we said last episode before Game 7 of Raptors Celtics. I said if the Raptors win, I go Heat. If the Celtics win, I go Celtics. The Celtics were the better team for much of Game 1. The Heat closed it out very well, as they have all postseason long, playing well down the stretch. Bam Adebayo,
That block.
probably one of the best blocks in postseason history. I know the LeBron chase down is more historically significant, but we see LeBron do that 5 or 6 times a season.
Right.
What Bam did was incredible. Tatum
His
came
hand
in,
was bent backward.
he came in untouched, unharmed, down the lane, cocked that thing back, and was ready to dunk Adebayo into next season. And what was going to be a poster for Tatum turned into an Adebayo poster for the big block. Incredible play.
Unbelievable.
I do think the Celtics there's just too much to handle. You look at how close that game was, and it was an off night for Kemba Walker. Once they have a night where everybody clicks, you really can't beat them. And I think they'll come away in 7 with the win. And could you write a better story than another historic Lakers-Celtics final to cap off the bubble?
See, that's the thing. I mean, you talk about the stars aligning. The only thing that's missing is Lakers-Celtics. So
that's it.
You would have to think that if this movie script stays on track, then that's the matchup we're going to get. Absolutely. I didn't even think of that until you said it, but it makes a lot of sense. NHL, Joe, the Stars have already clinched their berth into the Stanley Cup. We talked about the problems that Vegas had scoring against Vancouver. It continued against Dallas. And Dallas just got timely goals. They found ways to win game, and that's all it takes in the playoffs. We're still waiting to get a winner from the Lightning Islanders side. The Islanders won the double OT Game 5 to stay alive. You got to feel like the Lightning are going to give them their best, because a Game 7 in hockey is it's one game.
Yeah, no.
If you're not on that night, it could be over. They know they got to get it done tonight, and I think you're feeling the same way, that Tampa they're the better team, and I think they get it done tonight, and we're going to have a Dallas-Tampa final.
I agree. I don't think there's really much to it. The Lightning have proved to be the better team time and time again against everybody they've gone up against. The Islanders, credit to them, resilient bunch. They were able to make it happen in double overtime, a game that they probably should have lost on multiple occasions down the stretch. Kucherov had a good opportunity. I have pretty good confidence in saying the Lightning win it tonight. If not, they'll still probably take it in 7. When their backs are against the wall, they just totally flex their muscles. Now, granted, last time we had an episode, I said the same thing about the Nuggets and the Clippers. But I feel the same confidence this time around with the Lightning, and I hope this time I'm right. And if things change, next episode will be our full Stanley Cup preview. I guess we'll be a couple games into the final, so we really got to try to preview it now as much as we can, at least. But I think it's going to be Stars-Lightning. We thought Vegas and Tampa were on that collision course. Vegas didn't hold up their end of the bargain.
Nope.
This Stars team has kind of been, the NHL Nuggets, if you will, where they just continue to not say die. They won't bow out. They have had their issues. They have a negative goal differential, and they're still in the final. Yeah. It showed, like you said, how timely their scoring has been. When they play with a lead, they're so tough to beat. They clog the neutral zone so well. Their issue is going to be penalties against the Lightning. They lead the postseason in minor penalties taken. They've been very undisciplined. Corey Perry has been the most undisciplined, taking a lot of stupid slashing penalties, cross-checking penalties, roughing penalties that are unnecessary after the play. They get away with that against these other teams. Anton Khudobin has been fantastic in goal, but the Lightning are a different animal. You can't give them those power play opportunities and not expect to be hurt by it. So credit to the Stars for making this run. Not quite the Blues run from last year, but close to it. A team that didn't really start off well.
1-7.
Yeah, they didn't start off well, and they were in a better position in January than the Blues were last year, as last place in the league. And they went on, I think it was a 14-game winning streak, the Stars. So they came around, made an incredible run, and they're there. You can't take that away from them, but they go up against the Lightning. It's a very tall order. I go with the Lightning against the Islanders in Game 6. Even if it's not Game 6, they'll get it in Game 7. And I go with the Lightning in 6 over the Stars. A very pesky bunch. They're not going to get closed out easily by the Lightning. It's not going to be a 4 or 5 game series by any stretch. I think the Islanders series really prepares the Lightning well, though, for a Stars series, because they play similarly in that they're just a scrappy, resilient bunch who gets the job done. So the Lightning are prepared. The Lightning will get their cup that they've been waiting a while for. Not a while. I mean, they have won since the turn of the millennium with the St. Louis, Le Cavalier teams, coached by John Tortorella. But it's been, these last 6-7 years, they've been right there and have come up just short. They finally get over the hump, I think.
I'm with you. Yeah, the Stars, last time they made it was 2000, right? So it has been a while.
Early 2000s.
Yeah, we haven't talked about MLB in a while, so we'll get into that a little bit as teams they got like 10, 11 games left, so the MLB is coming down to the end. Obviously, October's approaching, which means baseball is nearing. And with football starting, with the NBA playoffs, NHL playoffs going on, Joe, people might not realize what the playoff picture in baseball is looking like, but the Chicago White Sox are the number one team in the American League right now. They are just red hot. We talked about the White Sox and the Padres, how they were kind of the two sleeper teams in their respective leagues because of the potential, the young talent. And boy, has that young talent lived up to it. The Padres obviously got just about everybody at the trade deadline to help them out. The White Sox pitching's been pretty good, but their lineup is just filthy. You want to talk Moneyball, Joe? How about the White Sox, Rays, and Athletics are the top 3 teams for you in the American League? The beauty of baseball right there. Money can get you the Garrett Coles of the world. It can get you the Mookie Betts of the world, but you still got to go out and play the game. Credit to those 3 teams, their rosters, the management, the coaching. They're playing great right now. Tampa was bad to start the year. Then they got hot. They dipped a little bit again, but now they are on a roll. The Yankees have finally they're getting healthy a little bit again after getting a scare. I mean, the Orioles are right on their teeth, and then they brought it back up. So the teams that we kind of expected to be in the playoffs are really all right there in the American League. National League, a little bit of a different story. The Nationals have been hurt by injuries. The Mets, I don't need to tell you about the pitching and how
we got Stephen Cohen. That's all that matters.
Right, that's all that you care about. I guess the real surprise are the Giants and the Marlins. I mean, the Marlins right now, they have the 2nd spot in the NL East. The top 2 from every division makes it. So they're only 2.5 game back of the Braves of leading the East, but they're right there in the playoffs right now. And the Giants, what hurts them is the fact that they got the Padres and the Dodgers in front of them. So they're not going to get one of the 2 division spots, but they're still right there in the mix to get a wild card spot and potentially make it to the playoffs. They just announced they're going to have the bubbles now. They're going to have the World Series in Texas. They're going to have the playoffs out in the West Coast. What did you think of that, of having even the American League teams having to go out west and play in the bubble?
Yeah, I was a little surprised to see that they're having basically everybody go west, but I guess it's a weather thing. And I know another place that was kind of floated around was the Marlins Park, but it's in Miami. And I know from being down here, like, you don't want people coming to Florida right now. Are you kidding me? Like, get them out of here. So I do like that they're picking the Rangers ballpark to kind of showcase that. Great for TV. It's a ballpark. I like that there might be limited fans. That might give some sort of environment. I really think it's been trending this way. That they've talked about going to a bubble for the postseason to make sure that they don't go 60 games and then, after all they've had to go through to get the season in, lose it in the postseason. You had to go to a bubble. It's the right idea. But I'm going to be honest, I don't really care. I really don't. Like, we had Worm on to talk some movie rants, but he was talking about it on Twitter the other day. I was talking about it with him. Baseball's the one sport where, as much as, earlier in one of our earlier episodes, we talked about some minor playoff expansion. You can't do too much to it because it's the only sport where the regular season matters so much because it's 162 games. It's such a long slog. If you want players invested and if you want fans invested, there has to be some sort of smaller cutoff. And the regular season is going to mean more.
Right.
If you go to, this season's different with 60 games, but now that Rob Bamford has talked about keeping this playoff format beyond this year, when it goes back to 162 games, it's going to lose a lot of people. Manfred has been horrible for the sport, for the league. I feel very comfortable in saying that because he has been.
Yeah.
And he's by far the worst commissioner in sports. And I don't know what's going to happen going forward. And there's the labor dispute that's going to be on the horizon. Hopefully we'll at some later date have Tim Kirchin back on to maybe talk about it more. But aside from that, looking at this postseason alone, like I said, I don't really care. I really don't. We knew it was going to be a weird year. We said that, if the cream kind of still rises to the top and we get, a Dodgers-Yankees World Series that we might have gotten anyway, different story. But as you look around, the season has been more finicky than even we imagined it would be. The Marlins that you mentioned are there for a playoff spot. They were essentially a minor league team that became even more of a minor league team after they lost a lot of people due to COVID early in the year. They've gotten those guys back since then, but they're 25 and 22. Remember last year, the Mariners started at a similar record to what the Marlins are now, and then went on to have a historically bad season.
Right.
So you know that in a 162-game season, the currently 25 and 22 Marlins might finish 73 wins most, but they're going to make the playoffs, and it's going to be a 3-game series. So when they go up against, say, the Cubs or something, they just got to win 2 games, and now you're in the DS.
Baseball, that's nothing.
And then beyond that, there's no days off between ALDS or NLCS games. They're playing them all in a row.
Yep.
It's going to have a big impact. So as if picking your opponent 3-game series wasn't already enough, now there's no days off in between those games. So the higher seeded teams who might limp to a higher seed in this shortened season, where you look at as great as the Dodgers are, they're barely going to squeak by the Padres for that first seed. After dealing with a 3-game series, then they're going to have to compete with having no days off. And, you wonder how vocal the league was with teams about this, because Aaron Boone straight up came out and said, we had no idea that there were going to be no days off. And it was in a question that was posed as far as, do the Yankees regret not getting pitching at the deadline because their pitching is already light? And now
Paxton just got hurt.
Paxton just got hurt. And with no days off between games, they can't run out a bullpen day that they were relying on like they did last postseason because there's no days off.
Yeah.
So how would that have impacted teams' deadline strategies? You just sprung this on them now that there's no days off between games?
Yeah, no communication.
The MLB has handled this about as poorly as any league possibly could. My interest level was already low because of how poorly they handled it. Am I still going to watch just about every postseason game? You bet your ass I'm going to. But as far as an asterisk next to winners, it's not for the NBA. It's not for the NHL. There will, unfortunately, be for the MLB. And you kind of hate to see it, because if a team like the Dodgers break their drought, or a team like the Padres come out and win one, it sucks that forever they're going to have questions raised about the World Series they finally won after some time. But that's how it's going to be. And, bubble or no bubble, whatever the case is, there's already a dark cloud over this postseason because of how misshapen it's going to look. And I don't know. I'm really curious to see if we have that luxury to have Tim Kirchin on again. He mentioned that a 60-game season would already kind of be a gray area as far as a true champion. And then all these things that have just compounded that mistake. 3-game series, pick your opponent, no days off. I don't know. or they don't know.
And then, if you remember, we gave our whole baseball preview, and then the day of the Yankees-Nats opening game is when they decide they want to expand the playoffs. So,
The day
like
the
you
season
said,
started, exactly.
day
They
it
had
started.
all this time,
Right. It's not like COVID happened the day before. You kind of knew what you were
They
getting.
had 5 months to figure things out. They waited till the last minute. I mean, they're really the example for, all those years where your teachers in high school, your professors in college said, don't wait till the last minute to do something. This is
Procrastination
why.
at its finest.
Procrastination at its finest.
It almost makes you wonder if Rob Manfred honestly thought if he ever wanted to play. Because from the negotiation standpoint, all those offers they gave the players were crap. Everybody knew it.
Of course.
And like you said, they're kind of just been playing catch up. It seems like there have been no plan in place. They've been talking about having a playoff bubble during the season. You would think.
And finally spring it on them now and add in no days off. Like it's just
I really kind of just thought about that until now, but you just wonder if Manfred had any interest. If he's like, with the pandemic, we didn't start the season on time. Why bother? And with the stuff he's doing, I mean, who knows? But I'm with you. He's not a good commissioner. The way he handled the Astros situation, we could go on about that. The way he's handled this season now, it's not good. And, he's lucky that playoff baseball is such a good product. It does hurt that there won't be days off. It looks like the teams that we thought would be most of the best teams in baseball are going to get in, though, thankfully. But, again, I don't like teams picking their opponent. You know what a motivational factor that'll be for, the Marlins? If the Padres are like, oh, yeah, we want that team, please. So we'll see what happens. Joe, it is time to talk the NFL. And before we get into our best bet segment, which you need a little work on as we head into week 2.
I need a little work.
Yeah,
on.
you lost.
You need a little work.
No. You lost 2 games. You were not good this week.
Okay.
Anyways, before we get into that, week 1 of the NFL season, how good was it to have it back?
It was great. And it honestly wasn't as weird as I thought it was going to be with no fans because
right?
You think about it. The way the camera angle is, you don't really see the crowd anyway on a given normal play.
It's the perfect golf and football are the perfect TV sports. They really are.
It was weird. I'll give you, it was weird when there were some late game situations that would have had major ovations and there was no sound. But most of the games, for the majority of the game, it was fine. It really was. And credit to NFL Films. They had a massive undertaking of compiling soundboards for networks and stadiums to use based on specific situations from previous seasons, like a 3rd and 7 stop, an interception late in the game. They went back and got sound from home stadiums from those specific situations to be played on broadcasts.
Yeah.
And they really worked it out. There were some times in the Dolphins-Patriots game where Nance and Romo got drowned out a little bit, where they may be a little bit too far in amping it up. But the viewing experience was fine. The Chiefs last Thursday night, for only having 17,000 fans, it sounded like they had 117,000.
Al Michaels kept referring to that.
And he kept referring to it, and you hope he's being honest, but they kept saying that they weren't pumping it up, that it was just a natural ambient noise. I know from being at Maryland, where we're lucky to fill half the stadium, though, that if something big happens, you still do get a big roar from the crowd, and I don't know the science behind it, but you get kind of some sort of echo that amplifies the noise off of the empty seats from the fans that are there. So you still do get very, very loud fan noise. So credit to them for pulling that off in Kansas City. I know some teams are opening it up to fans now as we go along a couple of weeks in. Cowboys, when they're home, have 25,000 fans. So not as weird as I thought it was going to be. And the action was great. It really was.
Quality of play was my thing. Chiefs, Ravens, Seahawks, Saints, all teams we thought would be great. I mean, didn't they look midseason form to you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Russell Wilson, Lamar Jackson, Mahomes, they were excellent. So to me, I thought the quality of play for week 1, not having a preseason, was pretty damn good. And it shows you the commitment the players made in the offseason. And credit to a lot of these coaches, man, for working with what they had, because obviously nobody's been through this and they all had to deal with it. But the product on the field week 1 was excellent, and you hope it continues. Adam Schefter reported this morning that the Chiefs-Texans game, nobody reported has had COVID coming out of that game, which is great. We obviously hope that is a trend through all the week 1 games. But Joe, as we dial into this, what team would you give your best performance in week 1, and which team would you give your worst performance?
So the best performance, I feel like the Ravens are the easy choice here. They played a great game. I was very pleased with what I saw from the Seahawks. A lot of other teams had good games, but you could see that they weren't totally in sync yet. Like the Saints were good, they weren't totally in sync yet.
Right.
They lost Michael Thomas for a little bit now. That's going to hurt them. The Chiefs, as great as they were and dominant as they were out of sync sometimes. Mahomes with his receivers, but still managed to put up over 30 points. So there's some teams who were a little bit here or there and needed to change, and even the Ravens, for as well as they played, had a few miscues. But the Ravens, you can't say anything really bad about the way they played. The Seahawks, the Chiefs, the usual suspects, like you said. I was very pleased, actually, though, with the Steelers on Monday night. I think they had some doubts about them. What would you see at a Big Ben? And they started very slow. So not really a complete performance. But in the second half, they started to really click. Benny Snell.
There was
a lot of talk about Benny Snell doing what Le'Veon Bell did. He was a bigger back in college. Between year 1 and year 2, after not using him much year 1, the Steelers had him drop 20 pounds.
Right.
Very quick. Looked almost like Le'Veon Bell. And if they somehow duplicated Le'Veon Bell and Benny Snell, then that's going to be tremendous to watch.
The
James
defense
Conner
was
hurt.
as advertised.
Defense, exactly, as advertised. So the Steelers, we talked about them as a little bit of a dark horse that could give the Ravens a threat. Don't think they will give them quite a threat, but they'll be a wild card team for sure, and as long as Big Ben stays healthy. The Cardinals, another team that looked really good, pulling off the upset against the 49ers. That offense is going to be fun. Their defense was better than advertised. So it's a lot of bright spots. The Jets were the worst team of the week. You know I was going to come at you with that. As we get into our picks, I told you.
They almost got me that backdoor cover, too. They
didn't almost get you a backdoor cover. They were down by 17. And they scored to make it a 10-point game with 54 seconds left. If they would have pulled off a backdoor cover of 6.5, down 17 with a minute to play, that would have been something.
But it was 24-10, midway through the third quarter.
Yeah.
So if they would have kicked a field goal and then got me a touchdown,
they needed a lot of things to have happened, but they didn't. And that was, again, like I said last week, one of those where I don't care where the money's coming in with no line movement, this or that. At the end of the day, some games you just look at and say, I don't care what the bettors are doing. From a football standpoint, they suck. They're good. Picking the team that's good when a touchdown victory is good because it was a 6.5-point spread. And that was it. And that score was way closer than the game actually was. So the Jets were one of the worst performers of the week. The Browns were a dumpster fire last week. We'll see how they turn around on Thursday night now. But yeah, overall, really enjoyed week 1. But now we get into our picks for the week. And PJ, you mentioned me having 2 losses. I went 3-2 out of our 5.
I was just giving you a hard time.
You were 0-5.
I was. Well, see, you can take this 2 ways, okay? You can say I was awful, or you could have faded me and had a 5-0 week.
True.
So,
that's true.
I mean, you
did get some bad luck. I'll give you that with Cuse, North Carolina.
Oh my God! That it was 7-6 midway through the third quarter.
7-6 midway through the third.
Disgusting. The Broncos. Steven Gostkowski was doing everything.
The Cuse game, to make matters worse for you, the Cuse game ended up losing by 25. It was a 4-point game in the fourth quarter, and North Carolina scored 3 touchdowns in 6 minutes to win that game by 25. So you lost it by a point.
Joe, and it was one of those games where Syracuse had a punt return called back. Their quarterback missed an open receiver in the end zone. It just your number 1 pick of the week was Denver money line, and it was only as close as it was because Gostkowski was trying to gift the game. So that you almost got lucky that it was closer than it was. But again, when I gave out
Cincinnati Chargers over. Now, for as much crap as I gave you about having the Jets and having the Denver money line be your best of the week, the Cincy Chargers over, I hammered that under last week. Those teams.
Did I tell you I love the under? I told you I love the under.
Oh, yes, that's right. You went against your gut. Yeah,
that's what I told you. I did love the under.
Right. I forgot.
But I just hammered. So technically, I did get that one right.
There's no moral victories. You're 0-5.
All right, I'm trying.
That we put on the board. I'll let you start this week. Not that that's going to help you, but
no, it's not. So All right, for everyone listening, whatever I give you, just take the opposite. There you go. Number 5 pick of the week is actually tonight, Thursday night's game. I'm going first half under Bengals-Browns 21. I really love the first half under. Joe Burrow's first NFL road game, short week, divisional opponent.
Some fans.
You got to think it's going to be very conservative play calling, especially the first half. They're going to rely heavily on Mixon, Gio, Bernard, short passing game. And I think same thing for the Browns. The Browns know they have to win tonight. Take the ball out of Baker Mayfield's hands. Give it to Chubb and Hunt. Let them run. Let your defense work. I think it's going to be a lot of running, a lot of conservative play calling. I wish it was 21.5 so I could get that 21. But again, if it's 14-7, you get the push. If it goes 20.5, that might be tough. I still like it, though. So Bengals-Browns first half under is my number 5.
Okay. I'm trying to stay away from tonight's game just because it's kind of a dumpster fire. But because of that is another game where I do like the under between the Bengals and the Browns. Neither offense looked good last week. After that, you come on a short week. So I think the offenses are still going to look pretty disjointed.
Right.
The total is 44 as I'm looking at it. I see this as kind of a 21-14, 20-17 type of game in favor of the Browns. And, whenever it comes to an over-under, I don't really like to pick it unless my personal score prediction is at least a touchdown away from what the over-under is. So, like last week, in that Chargers-Bengals game, I had it as something like 21-17 Bengals, and the total was 42. So again, I was comfortably enough, I thought, away from the total, a few points. But this one especially, 44 is a total. I don't see more than 5 touchdowns and a field goal. So I like the under in tonight's game. So for my 5th pick, I'll go like you, Thursday Night Football. On the NFL's 100th birthday officially. Don't know why they scheduled this garbage on their 100th birthday, but I will go under in this game.
Number 4 for me. Might be a little surprised with this, but I'm rolling with Indianapolis -3 against the Vikings. I think week 1 and week 2 are the toughest to bet in the NFL for obvious reasons. But I think especially in week 2, the worst thing you can do is overreact to what you saw in week 1. And I think a majority of people would agree that we think the Colts are a pretty good football team. They just did not play well against the Jags. I don't think they took them seriously. And if you would have told Colts fans that they would have been 1-1 heading into the season after the first 2 games, I think they would have taken it. So they lost to the Jags. They got to get it back with Minnesota. I think because they're favored, a lot of people will bet Minnesota. They put up a lot of points against Green Bay last week. They couldn't stop them, but they put up a lot of points. But I like Indy in this spot. Phillip Rivers just needs to limit the turnovers, run Jonathan Taylor, run Naheem Hines. They don't have Marlon Mack, which hurts them. But Indianapolis at home, again, -3. So if they win by a field goal, it's a push. I like the number. And that's my number 4 is the Colts.
My number 4, I'll go to college. And a team that I didn't really know what to expect anything out of going into last week. But then Derek King, who we forgot about from Houston, transferring to Miami, looked incredible. It's our first top 20 matchup of the season. Miami is on the road against Louisville. It is a 2.5-point spread. Louisville favored. I'm going to go with Miami on the money line at +115. I really like what I saw out of King. They didn't have a good opponent last week, so that's obviously taken with a grain of salt. But that's your one get right, essentially preseason game before your big game in conference against Louisville. And King looked phenomenal. He's got a crazy streak going right now of having a rushing touchdown and passing touchdown in a game. I think that the U is going to have a solid season in the ACC. I know the last few years it seems like everybody's like, oh, the U is back. Oh, Texas is back. And neither are back. But the U looks good. And I think this is a good matchup for them. Look for King to go off. I like them on the money line as the underdog.
So my number 3 game is Louisville -2.5 against Miami.
Oh, okay.
And so one of this is going to be a winner this week. I love betting against college teams when you got a matchup like this and really the quarterback for one team is the by far highlight player. Okay. Louisville's quarterback, I think, is still Puma Pass. I don't know if it is, which is a great name, by the way, but I don't know if it still is. But Miami's is De'Ara King. And because I know that, I know a lot of people will be like, well, he's pretty good. Louisville's favored. I don't know anybody on their team. Let's bet Miami. So I like Louisville. Again, I love the number. When you're laying points, it doesn't get any better than 2.5 because if they win by a field goal, you're a winner. Louisville at home, prime time, under the lights. Still don't trust Manny Diaz yet. I like the Ville to win it.
So that's my only college game of the week. I did think about Duke home against Boston College at -6. So I got to watch Duke last week against Notre Dame. That was one of my incorrect picks. I had Notre Dame at -20. They were a score away from that. But I went away from it just because it's bottom feeders of the ACC, 6-point spread, not really too confident in it. So for my number 3 pick, I go back to the NFL. All 3 of the remaining picks I have are in the NFL. And for this one, so I was surprised to see this game spread where it is after what we saw out of both of these teams last week. The Packers are only laying 6 at home at Lambeau against the Lions. The Lions always play their divisional opponents very close, but they collapsed against the Bears last week. The Packers came out and absolutely lit up the Vikings offensively. That game only became a closer game because of just, garbage time scoring from the Vikings. Aaron Rodgers looked like the Aaron Rodgers who was pissed off at everybody and wants to win the MVP to shut everybody up.
Sure did. Devontae Adams had, 14 catches? I mean,
yeah, he went off. So similar to kind of how I felt last week about the Jets and the Bills, being that it's only 6 points. 6 points is a common scoreline where you can get a push. I think the Packers win this by at least a touchdown. My personal pick for this game is something in the realm of 38-24 Packers. So I was a little surprised to only see 6. So I'll take it. Packers -6 for my 3rd pick.
Yeah, that'll be an interesting game to see, too, how the Lions bounce back after Swift, dropped that touchdown. They should have won it. My number 2 game, and this really doesn't have anything to do with X's and O's, the play on the field, but I love the Patriots +4 against Seattle. Bill Belichick's mom passed away, and I think the team is really going to rally around him. When I saw that, I think – obviously, the players love Belichick because he wins. He takes them to the playoffs. He takes them to the Super Bowl, and they're going to want to do it for him. You're getting +4, so you have great leeway. If it's a 28-24 game, if it's 27-24, then you win. The Patriots defense is still really good. Russell Wilson is a lot better than Ryan Fitzpatrick is, so they'll probably put up more than 11 points. But Cam Newton running, they're going to feed Michelle, and they're going to feed White, and they're going to feed Edelman. They won't beat themselves. These games always come down to the wire, whether it's the Super Bowl or the Sunday night game when maybe there was pass interference on Gronk, who knows. But I do like the Pats in this spot, +4 against Seattle.
All right. My number 2, I like a total. Atlanta-Dallas. Atlanta could not stop anything last week against the Seahawks. Dallas got in a tighter game than I thought they would against the Rams. There were scoring opportunities for both teams. They went for it on 4th down. That was a much maligned decision from Mike McCarthy. So there were points that were kind of left on the board in that game, I thought. Atlanta will score at will. They will give up points at will. The total is 52. This is a game where both teams probably get into the 30s, if not both into the 30s. You got one in the 30s, one in the upper 20s. So I don't think 52 is really much of a problem. I've got the Cowboys winning this game, and they will, like I said, have 25,000 fans, according to reports at Jerry World. So this is a game where I see the Cowboys coming out maybe 35, maybe 38. Falcons, whether they keep it as a close game or whether they get it as garbage time touchdowns, which I was very happy to get from Calvin Ridley last week on one of my teams.
Too.
2 garbage time touchdowns.
Hell yeah. All time.
They'll get their point total up as well. It's probably one of those games that's 38 to 17 in the 4th quarter, Cowboys, and then a touchdown or 2 late, which 38-17 already is your over at 55 with a total at 52. But the Falcons put it way over by scoring 10 garbage time points. So I really like the over at 52 in Cowboys-Falcons.
Did you think that was PI on Gallup at the end of the Rams game?
In live speed, yes. In slow-mo, Ramsey sold it.
He did.
I don't have any issue with the refs making that call because he really sold it well live, and Gallup did push off. It
He
wasn't
did.
as pronounced as Ramsey made it out to be, but he pushed off, and I think it's a fine call.
that's-
Might have gotten overturned if that PI review rule was still in play, but it wasn't an egregious call.
Right.
I'll say that.
My number one, Joe, you sold me last week. I'm rolling with the 49ers -7
Okay.
against the Jets. Bad spot for the Jets. You're getting the Niners team off a home loss, which they controlled most of the game. Garoppolo and company just couldn't get the job done. They're not going to mess around with the Jets. They don't want to give them any hope to keep this thing close. Again, I get a little worried when teams like this, and it's only 7. The Niners are traveling across the country. They got to play a 10 a.m. kick, which may be having to do with this. And I worry because I know a lot of people are going to be on San Francisco. But like you said, sometimes you just one team's better than the other. The way the Jets looked last week, I don't think they can improve that much from this week, especially against that defense. So I like San Francisco -7.
Same for me. I got the Niners -7. You probably knew that was going to be my number one.
Yeah,
pick.
I did.
The Jets offense, horrible. They're going up against a front 7 in the Niners that will get to Sam Darnold all day long. Mekhi Becton was tremendous in his debut.
He is good.
He was tremendous in his debut, and I'm curious to see how he works against Nick Bosa.
Any Frank Gore motivation, though? I mean, the guy gets to play against his team one more time.
I don't think so.
No,
It's a touchdown spread. I figure worst case scenario, we're getting a push out of this. Whether they have Kittle or not, they don't have Sherman. The Jets can't pass the ball anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But no Kittle could hurt, but they've got plenty of other weapons. Especially, Deebo Samuel being out too. Like, they're missing guys, but
they are.
But I mean, McKinnon, Mostert, Coleman, they'll run the ball down the Jets' throat. They'll control time of possession. They have other guys who Jimmy Garoppolo could target. The Jets aren't going to really put up points.
That Bills game could have been a lot uglier if Josh Allen didn't turn the ball right. Should have been a lot.
Should have been.
Yeah.
Maybe you say the Niners coming west to east, but I don't know. I go with the Niners.
That's one of those games too. If the Jets cover, good for them, because I would not bet them +7. You bet the Niners, or you don't bet it.
Exactly. Now, some other games that stuck out for survivor pick purposes. Going with the Bucs, they're not losing 2 in a row with Tom Brady home against the Panthers, but they didn't like the 8.5. Christian McCaffrey in that offense. They scored a lot last week. That's got backdoor cover written all over it. My underdog of the week is the Giants on the road against the Bears, giving 5.5. I like that money line against the Bears.
Okay.
So that was just a couple other ones to toss out there. Not part of my best 5, but yeah. So that's it. Let's see if you can get on the board with one at least this week.
Hopefully, one of us will, because we're caught between Louisville and Miami. I got the Titans for survivor. The Colts freaking screwed me last week, so I can't wait for another AFC South team to knock me out, and I'm done. And then my upset, besides New England, I really think they might win outright. I like the Raiders on Monday night at home, opening up that new stadium. It's tough betting against the Saints. They looked pretty good last week, but it sounded like Michael Thomas isn't going to play.
He's not. He's out for a few weeks.
Right. So, and the Raiders, they're going to lean on Josh Jacobs. They got Ruggs. Carr looked pretty good. They put up some points on Carolina. The Raiders could be a nice little upset pick on Monday night. So
knock on wood if you're with me, boys.
There you go. Joe, it is that time. We have reached trivia. It is, I always forget what the score is. I believe it's 5 to 4.5.
I thought it was 6.5 to 4.5.
6.5 to 4.5?
Yes, because last week, it is 6.5 to 4.5.
It's a good thing you remember.
Last week, remember, you got cocky and thought you could give me one more. So I gave you the half point because you could not give me that one more.
Right.
So I said we're back on level pegging as far as being exactly 2 games apart because you got the half win for you. So.
Beautiful. I love my question for you this week.
Okay.
It's U.S. Open week, so I'm giving you a U.S. Open week.
Okay, I went football again, just so you know.
Okay. So there are 10 guys that are in the field this week in the U.S. Open that have won a U.S. Open. Give me 5 of them. Koepka does not count, obviously, because he's not in the field.
Not in the field.
So there are 10 guys that are playing in the field that are previous winners whenever you're ready.
Okay. Tiger, Rory.
2.
Okay. Jordan Spieth.
3.
DJ?
4.
Okay.
Yep, 2016.
I can't remember what year it was. 2016. Okay, I knew he had it.
One in Oakmont.
Yeah.
Spieth was 2015. Rory was 2011.
Yes.
25 seconds, plenty of time.
Okay. Okay. You're not going to want to see what certain people's scores are, by the way, that you have it in the background.
Don't tell me that. That means Roy's dropping.
Oh, wait. This came up in a question already this year. When it was Koepka and the guy that I said who looks like him, and it was a great battle last year between the two, and I couldn't. Gary Woodland.
There you go. Okay. Woodland, nicely done.
I don't remember what week that was, but that came up, and I was like, oh, I know this guy. He looks just like Koepka. It was down the stretch last year, but no, there, Gary Woodland. Okay.
So you got Tiger, 2000, 2002, 2008. Lucas Glover won it in 2009. Graham McDowell at Pebble Beach, 2010. Rory, 2011. Webb won at Olympia in San Francisco.
2011. It's been 9 years for Rory. Oh, my God.
Yeah, I know. 11 years at Congressional. 2012, Webb won it at Olympic. Justin Rose, 2013 at Marion. Martin Keimer, 2014. Jordan Spieth, 2015. DJ, 2016. Koepka was 17 and 18, but he's not playing. And then Gary Woodland was last year. So well done.
All right.
Got 5.
All right. It is the NFL's 100th birthday today officially. So sticking with the number 100 theme, last year, there were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 players who had at least 5 100-yard rushing games. Now, if I were to just say give me 5 of the 8, that would be a bit too easy because there's one absolute gimme if you paid attention to anything last year, obviously, and that's Ezekiel Elliott. So I'm going to say besides Zeke because he had 7 last year and missed, I think, was it 1 game or 2 games. So aside from Zeke, because that one was very, very obvious, of the remaining 7, I'd like you to give me 5 of the guys who had at least 5 100-yard rushing games. Understood?
Okay. Yeah.
All right.
Got it.
Your timer starts now.
Mark Ingram.
Mark Ingram did not.
Really? Christian McCaffrey.
That's right. Yes.
Maybe Saquon, Kamara, Aaron Jones, Derrick Henry.
Derrick Henry is another one of them, yes.
Nick Chubb.
Nick Chubb. You've gotten the 3 who had the most, 7 for Chubb, 6 for Henry, 6 for McCaffrey. That's why I wanted to take Zeke out of the equation because you were probably going to get those 3 anyway. So,
I mean, Barkley might have. Aaron Jones might have.
40 seconds gone.
Let's see. Josh Jacobs.
Josh Jacobs is with 5 exactly on the nose. You've got 4.
Let's see.
So 3 possibilities remaining, 2 strikes, and you need 1 more. You got to get 1 of the 3 remaining.
Chris Carson.
Chris Carson had 6. There you go. The other couple of guys were Aaron Jones, who you mentioned,
yes.
but didn't say, and Lamar Jackson got 5. So you had a Raven. But it was not Mark Ingram who you said. Look at that. When was the last time we both got it right?
I know. That was pretty good. See, Saquon, I knew he didn't.
At 4.
Yeah.
Just missed getting to the 5 mark.
Lamar,
7.5 to 5.5. Yep,
look at that, Joe. Well done. We both got
7.5 to 5.5.
Good way to end the episode. Again, no guest this week, but we're hoping to have
Worm counts.
Stringing. That's true. We did have Worm on. So awesome show. A lot of sports. U.S. Open, NFL, college football, MLB, NHL, and NBA.
Again,
a little bit everything for anyone.
Like we said, if there was a week where there was going to be no guest, we're glad it was this week because there was so much else to cover.
Pretty damn good one, yep.
It was a last-minute thing with the Big Ten starting. We will have that guest who shall remain nameless as a surprise in case anything else pops up. Don't want to promise and not deliver. But he is slated for October 1, and our guest for next week, another – going back again to our NBC Sports Washington folks, who is now starting a podcast of his own, and that should be a very fun episode. A lot of high energy from this guy.
Absolutely.
You'll really enjoy that. And then we are looking to start to get some repeats back on the pod as well beyond that. So
definitely
after this week of the no guests, after 16 weeks in a row with one, we've got a really nice lineup coming up again. And we're, PJ, for no sports at the beginning, all the sports now. It's sad that we're actually only a couple of weeks away from it dying down again because we're a couple of weeks away from the NBA and NHL going away.
I know. We got football back, though, which
we do got football back, and that eases a lot of pain.
That does help.
Yes.
Well, this was fun, Jill. I'm going to go watch some golf, okay?
I'll watch some golf.
I appreciate that. I got to see how bad Rory's shit in the bed, so I appreciate it. So this was fun, and we'll see y'all next week.